Oh, campus rackets.
We are going live on YouTube soon, so please keep
What's up with the lights?
the decorum polite.
I don't know.
John, do you know where the lights, these make it brighter?
Soda system rather than the
Yeah,
Mid-State
maybe brighter.
system.
I don't know. I've worn them for 2 years. Isn't there like, isn't that middle light turn on?
to wear my SDSU sweatshirt, and then I was like, maybe not. I say we just turn off all the lights and have
There's
it.
dimmer switches over there.
Dude, SDSU is such a bad school.
Don't tell Sam I
If he
said
doesn't wanna
that.
talk, can he like click through the slides on Zoom?
Yes. There's no CD.
My sister dropped out of there.
It's too much.
Oh, thanks.
I moved. I want to send it.
It's okay, SDU is okay, but SDSU.
Yes, UC is fine, right?
What?
UC is fine.
I haven't heard anything bad about him.
What?
I said I haven't heard anything bad.
Not yet.
He's
You can actually find.
like
There's
very.
no saying that he's sick, so we can try.
How was your snow day?
Yeah, or do you want to do it on Zoom and?
How was your snow day?
Student activity.
Yeah, if you want to do it on Zoom and you want to do that for the
Maybe not.
sorry, Jacob, for the second one too.
I would.
Then you can, well, then you can,
So.
because then you can control like the pace of the slide. Like if, so then you don't have to say next. So then you can just.
Well, John, you're not authorized in the middle. Read the signs.
If you're doing the presentation.
I'm just plugging stuff.
Anthony, how's it going?
Too many drinks on the table.
Doing well.
And if anything, just like.
Yeah.
Or once you like.
Yeah, I can do that.
OG. Have you seen Mind Rings?
Is he gonna join us?
Sorry, I don't remember.
Right in front of me with different papers.
I just take it down.
What was you're under your 6? What's your go-to? Take a picture of it.
Oh, now I can swipe on through.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I've never had fun.
It's your time to
No, I've
start.
never. I don't want to die early.
What do you mean?
Make a sip of
Ice cream that
like.
he stole.
We don't sleep habits.
My sleeping
And your
habits.
addiction.
My addiction.
They're also doing increasing, but they're.
We're not talking about mine. We're talking about
Oh,
Yeah, but you guys approved their increase.
breathing.
Like,
Yeah. Like they're, like the ingredients, what the reason is that they can no longer use the service to grab on.
It has a blank.
Their request is skipped.
UFC this Saturday.
Oh, you want to see my setup, bro? You're gonna like it.
I just caught up.
I mean, I have like signs of collection, but otherwise, yes. Oh, that is so lit. Holy crap, yeah, I'll need to take you to mine. I have an aviation major. We just wanted. He's also very.
Oh, got it.
But I just.
Who's your roommate?
His name is Will
He
Brinkman.
spells it. Your name's spelled with an E.
But
Yeah.
Yeah, it's IEN.
the sizes.
IEAN.
Now, student workers are really conservative. No, I don't like.
I think you just have an caution, like, I don't, there's a part of me that.
Especially
good for
if I'm-
Yeah, that's what If they give like Sean.
I feel like I definitely.
Okay. Oh, I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
That's a good training.
I won't. No, I just got the questions that
Can I reach out?
I'm worrying
He has a bunch of friends there.
Yeah, the blue one.
You look like you do,
I was
so.
looking for the
Zoom folks, we will be starting in a few minutes. And remember, if you're on Zoom, you have to have your camera on. On but muted. So mute yourself, but have your camera on. Thank you, Mark, for already doing that. And thank you everyone else who is now doing that. Appreciate it.
It is. I was like, it's a little chilly out there. You know, a bunch of
Okay.
So
Yeah,
I'll
that's
be,
fine.
I'll be, I'll be have the slides.
Okay.
Can you pull up the spreadsheet? The student.
I just need to
Wow,
get
that's a lot of
down
people.
and feel
David today.
I just need to.
Whoa.
Her to give me permission. I don't want
That's
to.
a lot of Zoom people.
I'm like, if you just tell me, I can do it.
think Roche is.
I feel like some
3, 4, 5,
Zoom
6,
and
7,
just
8.
play it.
Just start
Oh,
playing.
that's
Yeah.
I was talking with them.
Sick.
No, I'm willing to do all the work. I just need spending freedom because that's not.
Okay.
Yeah, like, look,
I'm turning my camera off.
Yeah, no, you're good, you're good.
And I don't have to.
I watched it this
Or,
afternoon.
so,
It was very solid.
Most of my money.
She makes me.
No.
Okay, there we go.
Like,
Sorry. I feel like a good idea.
Percentages in this. If we go to eat, it's purely
I'm gonna try to share this right now.
You should.
Yeah.
Special
Like,
effects.
So we are barely.
I need sharing.
It only gives me more
Stuff.
Can you?
I had to drive to the chiropractor this morning, so I've been out of place for it.
We are. This is the whole thing.
But,
You guys
yeah,
are my hierarchy.
It's gonna be sort of
Yeah, maybe
changes,
just
but
try
it
to share
should
my
be that
screen
clear.
first.
Now I was really curious and just.
Hey, everyone, pay attention to John real quick. If you're a senator, if you're not a senator, you can tune John out.
Real quick, some people had some good questions. So before we get into the actual student activity fee presentation, I'm going to ask Roshit to show the spreadsheet that is available for you. So again, this can be found in the student activity fee folder within the budget documents. I want to explain what these columns mean, just in case you aren't clear on what they mean. So if you look at column B, where it says FY26 proposed next year total operating budget, that is what the department is saying that they're going to need to operate on for year 25 right now. We're always in the fiscal year that that is ending. The year that we're always in is the year it's ending. Okay, so our fiscal year runs July 1 to June 30. Fiscal year 25 ends June 30, 2025. Fiscal year 26 starts July 1st, 2025. Okay, and runs through June 30 of next year. So column B, this is what the department is saying they need to operate for next year. Column C, self-generated income, that's the money that they are anticipating bringing in that is not student activity fee money. Okay. Column D is the total amount that they are requesting for next year. This is what the department's included in their documents for their request. Column E is the increase or decrease. I don't think anybody decreased. Several groups increased. That's how much more they're asking for next year than they got this year. Okay. So column E is how much more they are asking for next year than they got this year. Column F is the percentage change. Column G is how much money they got this year. Okay, so fiscal year 25, current year base subsidy, that's how much they got this year. And then the final column H is what SAC is recommending. So Andrew's going to go over that stuff when he's presenting their recommendations. So if there are questions about what these columns mean, I know there was some confusion about column E in particular. Column E is how much more they are asking for next year than they got this year. Okay, so any questions about what those columns mean? If you look down at the green, let's see, underneath the main part of the chart, you'll see how much the per credit hour fee was this year and what's being recommended for next year. So you'll see it was $9.81 a credit hour this year. It's being recommended $10.34, and it shows the percentage increase. So can you just scroll down just a tad there, Roshi? There you go. So that 5.4%. And then down below that is just a breakdown of a couple of the umbrella type areas that are in the chart above. So it gives you a breakdown of campus rec. So there's one for intramural sports, there's one for sports clubs, and then there's Maverick Adventures as its own line. And then underneath that you have student activities, because student activities has the administration office, they have the fraternity, sorority life, Maverick involvement team, all of that. So this is the breakdown where they are just grouped above in the chart. Okay. So just want to make sure you know what those columns meant. I know I addressed this chart, but didn't make sure that you knew what those columns meant. So that's what you got. Okay.
Thank you, John.
Yeah.
I am calling this meeting to order at 4:02 p.m. and then we are going to go into our land recognition statement. Student government acknowledges that we live, work, and learn in the homeland of the Dakota people whose language frames our institution's name, Minnesota State University, Mankato. So now we will go into first roll call, Senator Hassan, Senator Leon, Senator Franzen,
Here.
Senator Miucci. Zoom, okay, Zoom, perfect. Senator Prignitz.
Here.
Senator Emke's Zoom. Senator Ponte.
Here on Zoom.
That's okay, you can say here. Senator Mackey.
Here.
Senator Buckney.
Zoom.
Cool. Senator Reyes.
Here.
Senator Maega.
Here.
Perfect. Senator Thapa.
Here.
Senator Mpanga.
Here.
Senator Lee. Senator Dietrich.
Here.
Senator Smith.
I'm here. Sorry.
Senator Green. Senator Johnson.
Here.
Senator Moore.
Here.
Senator Mabo. Senator Knauer. Senator Karki.
Here.
Senator Livingston.
Here.
Senator Riggle.
Here.
Senator Colleran. Senator Zelmer.
Present.
Senator Ide.
Present.
Senator Hillstead.
Here.
And then Senator Isaac, I believe, is also on Zoom.
Yes, I'm here.
Perfect. Then I'm here, President Narala,
Present.
and Vice President Jay. And we have quorum. Perfect. So moving on to the approval of the consent agenda, I see there's an amendment, President Narala.
Ahead of approving the consent agenda, I do want to make a comment. Folks, if you go ahead and see the consent agenda, you'll see that student allocations has made a recommendation to allocate $10,000 from uncommitted reserves to use for RSO staff travel and programming. I do want to make a highlight and appreciate all of our student organizations for all of the work that they've done this year. SAC using uncommitted reserves for that $10,000 to support our travel and programming for student groups is a really good thing, because we're now seeing student involvement grow on campus. We have reserve amounts where we support student organizations all across campus. And what this reflects is that students have been tapping into these resources that's available to them. And I definitely think we're going in the right direction as students are getting more involved. As I make that comment, I do make a motion to move open forum and dean of the day ahead of presentations today.
Is there a second?
Second.
Alrighty, so the motion was to move open forum and dean of the day to before presentations. Is there any dissent to that motion? Any dissent? Alrighty, that motion has been approved, so the new agenda puts open forum and the dean of the day before presentations. So that's now our new agenda. So then is there any dissent to the approval of the consent agenda? Any dissent? Alrighty, seeing none, the consent agenda has been approved. So now moving on, we will go right into open forum. And I think we have some folks on Zoom here from open forum. I believe Riley and Mackenzie for sure are here for open forum. So if you two want to go first, you can do that.
Yes, we can.
Perfect.
Can you guys hear us okay?
Yes.
All right.
You might need perfect.
Can you guys see what I'm sharing at all?
We can
You see your Zoom screen, like the Zoom browser, you might have to drag it over.
How about now?
It's frozen on our end. Still see the Zoom link.
Let me try again.
That's okay.
Otherwise, I don't have to share and I can just go over it quickly, just to save time. But we just wanted to quickly introduce ourselves. So I'm Riley Regan. I'm the IFC president. And then alongside me is Mackenzie Carter. She is the VP of Council Management for PHC. We just quickly want to go over our community goals. Starting with every chapter does a joint highway cleanup. We just changed the second one that we have. It is every chapter presents its student government, but we've come to the conclusion that instead we're going to do each council presents at student government next semester. And then 50% of fraternity sorority life community is involved with at least one registered student organization. Each newsletter compiled together at the end of the year and present at student government. Every chapter sends a monthly newsletter to public relations. Every chapter does a spring cleanup. The Greek GPA above university GPA have one collaborative post with Mankato State page every month. Create content with one different RSO per month. And then the final two are IFC. Each chapter for the guys, I don't remember what this, I think we decided on 4, but it's 3 on here, but it's 4 new members per chapter for the guys. And then for girls, it's 8 new members per chapter. So do you guys have any questions for us?
Any questions? Senator Livingston?
How are we going to assess some of these goals, specifically like the joining another RSO? How are you going to measure that?
So currently, obviously other students are along with other RSOs. So like, for example, our diversity and outreach chair, he is also a part of the Black Student Union, I believe. He just recently read a poem at their ball. So that's just one sort of example, but we will, I'm sure, compile a list of other students who are among a different RSO outside of Greek life.
Are there any other questions for these two? Senator Zellmer?
I was wondering who would be tracking these goals?
So it would either be myself and my counterpart, or Kenzie and her counterpart.
Any other questions? Alrighty, seeing none, thank you for sharing your goals with us.
Thanks, guys.
Is there anyone else here for open forum? If you are here for open forum on Zoom, can you like raise your hand or something? Okay, I don't think there's anyone else here for open forum. I don't think there's anyone in the gallery here for open forum. So perfect, that is great. Alrighty, so then we will move on to our Dean of the Day, which is Dr. Roy Kammer, who's the Interim Associate Dean for the College of Allied Health and Nursing. And he is on Zoom.
I am. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me here today. Happy to be the Dean of the Day. I've just got a few quick announcements I'd like to share with you. First off, we have our annual Health Summit coming up on Wednesday, March 26th. We're really excited about this. It's an event that's sponsored in part by community partners. So Mayo Health Systems, Mankato Clinic, Delta Dental, and a number of others. Because of their generous donations, we're able to make the conference free for students to attend. I'm actually going to throw in the chat just a link to it, and then the code for free registration. This year's focus is really on technology in healthcare and how we keep the person-centered aspect to providing good healthcare, even when we use technology. We've got 2 really nationally renowned speakers. One is Dr. Liz Kuo. She's just absolutely fantastic, but is the COO for, or actually the Chief Commercial Officer for Everly Health. They're a digital health company. They do virtual diagnostics, so just awesome work that they do. And our afternoon keynote is Sinan Ibrahim, and also is in digital health, primarily in the area of life-saving prenatal care. So you can see more about them if you happen to check out the website. Again, this is free to all students, faculty, staff. Lunch is provided. Even if you just want to come for a part of it, we encourage you to register. I encourage you to share it with friends, peers, whoever you might think would benefit from it. So we do it every year. It's a great event, and hope that you or others might consider attending. Second thing I would just share is we had our grand opening for our Rural Behavioral Health Clinic. I know when I was here before, I talked about our behavioral health center, and we launched the clinic. We're seeing clients. We had a big open house here just a few weeks ago. So we had representatives from the governor's office, Senator Klobuchar and Smith's office, and just a wide range of people here to celebrate really the grand opening of the clinic. We're just excited to provide this training opportunity again, so students who are in behavioral health programs across the university have a great place to get some training and learn more about rural behavioral health, make them competitive in the market, and also at the same time really provide care to people who need it, because there's a lack of access for behavioral health care in Mankato and the surrounding area. So just really excited to have the clinic up and running. Another piece I'll just share quick is just happy to report we've had a lot of faculty in our college writing workforce grants. And you might say, Roy, what's so exciting about that? But a lot of these grants help to fund students to be able to participate in programs, be able to participate in internships, practica, and so forth, and have dollars to support them to do that. There've been a lot of different workforce grants out there in the healthcare space. So it's exciting when we have faculty write them, and when we get them, the bottom line is it helps to support students. So just happy to report that we've got a big one out to HRSA and a number of others, and we're just hopeful that we'll get funded for some of those. And finally, I would just be remiss if I didn't say there are several policies out there right now for formal review. I'm pretty passionate about a number of them, excited. One's an update to missed classes, which I know that you're all aware of, but I just think is a great leap forward for our university if it all goes through. So just encourage you to keep watching those policies. But those are my updates to share. I'm happy to answer any questions if you got them for me. But other than that, just also happy to be here and observe and see the great work y'all do.
Thank you. Are there any questions for our Dean of the Day? I did have one question when you mentioned the conference. Is there a time for that? Because you gave us the date, but not the time.
All right, great question. It's registration opens at 8:15. First keynote is at 9, and it all wraps up by 2 p.m. We used to have it the full day, but we heard that was just too long. So our advisory committee said, let's shorten it up a little bit. So essentially 9 a.m. till 2 p.m. So.
Perfect, thank you. Anyone else have any questions for our Dean of the Day? I think they're all shy. But thank you so much. Yeah. Oh, I think Senator Maba, I think I saw your hand go up. Yes. You can unmute yourself.
Question, where is the clinic located?
Oh, the clinic?
Yeah.
The clinic is in University Square. So I always like to say, if you're familiar with where Coldstone is at, it's tucked underneath of the, kind of in the corner back there by Coldstone. Does that make sense?
Is it across from the U.S. Army office? Okay.
Exactly, you got it. Thank you.
Perfect. Senator Ide?
Thank you for coming here and doing a little presentation for us. I appreciate you spending your time. I just had a quick question. So I used to be a dental hygiene major, and I realized, as many others did, how kind of strict the program was and how competitive it was, especially here at the university. Additionally, with other programs like nursing, are there any plans to expand those programs as far as you're aware?
Great question. I think many of you are probably aware in academic affairs, we're going through a portfolio review right now as a whole. One of the pieces of that portfolio review is we've had programs take a look at what opportunities are there to grow enrollment. Now, some programs are more easy to grow and expand than others are. Dental education, dental hygiene, for instance, are very dependent on clinic space, right? So many of you are aware that we've got clinic space, dental hygiene clinic essentially right here within our university that's community facing. In order to increase enrollment significantly, we need more access to more space and so forth. So some of those programs are a little bit harder to grow more quickly than others, but those are all pieces we're actually looking at right now, figuring out who can take 2 more students, who can take 10 more students. What we do know is a lot of our graduate programs, for instance, I'll talk about sport, exercise, performance psychology. They often have 60 to 100 applications per year, and we take about 20 students. So we've got high demand programs, and just looking at if they were resourced in the way they need to be resourced, could we accommodate more of those students? So it's a great question. There's a lot of complexities there, but it's actually part of our portfolio review we're going through right now.
Perfect. We have a couple more questions that popped up. Senator Zelmer.
Hi, thank you for joining us. I was wondering, with these complex kind of and unknown majors like dental hygiene, where students don't know if they're in that major until later on, what are you doing to accommodate the students who don't get into the program but are kind of just like lost of, I kind of committed my entire college career, thousands of dollars to this program and I didn't make it. What do I do now?
Yeah, so I think our advising team does a great job, and honestly, there's always opportunity to do better. Talking about other options, we just, for instance, had a conversation today with an education program in one of our health science programs, alcohol and drug counseling, about how in kind of entry level courses, students will sometimes say, I don't want to be an educator anymore, or vice versa. How we can do a better job funneling information to students about majors, programs that are really aligned with their interests, right? Because we have competitive programs that not everyone is going to get into. And yet we've got a lot of great programs that have similar, I should say, require similar skills. So making sure we have pathways and information to talk about how we can most easily get someone connected with one of those other programs to make sure they're still using the best use of their credits they've accumulated. Again, there's sometimes lost credits, and I don't have a perfect answer for that, but making sure we have those tracks, those pathways laid out as smoothly, clearly as we can to try to reduce those lost credits.
Thank you. And then Senator Livingston.
Hi, thanks for being here. Or thanks for joining us for Zoom. I was wondering if I can get the status of the Allied Health basement renovations. I was wondering if it's gonna be more academic centered or if it's gonna be more towards other partnerships and offices.
Got it. So, great questions. Allied Health and Nursing as a college doesn't drive those as much as the general, university facilities does. So we've been invited to some of those conversations. My understanding is that in the current renovation considerations, it is partially office space, I believe, for a number of programs, including psychology and then counseling student personnel, as well as some classroom space and training rooms and so forth. I don't think any final decisions have been made. They're still in drafting phases of that, trying to figure out how to make the best use of that space as possible. We had looked at potentially expanding our athletic training lab down into that space too, and just there's a lot of unknowns, but trying to figure out what will make the best use of that space. I personally have not been involved in those particular planning meetings, so everything I'm giving you is secondhand to what has been reported back to me from Dean and others involved in that conversation. So I wish I had more specifics, but that's literally what I know. So.
Perfect, thank you. Are there any other questions? Any on Zoom? Alrighty, I don't see any more, but thank you so much for coming and joining us today.
Well, thanks for having me, and thanks for the great questions, everyone.
Yeah, alrighty. So moving on in the agenda is now presentations.
So our first presentation is going to be the 25-26 Housing Remit Board proposal presentation, which will be done by Senator Colleran, and then if needed, he has Anthony for his backup.
Okay, well, hello everyone, I'm Andrew Colleran. Oh, different slideshow.
Yeah, we're good. We'll get that.
Sorry, everybody. Oops.
Perfect. So hello everyone, I'm Andrew Colleran. I use he, they pronouns. So I wear very many hats in this university, but I'm just gonna put on my hat as Residence Hall Association president. So the Residence Hall Association, RHA, is an organization that looks over the dorms at MSU Mankato. And I get to run meetings every single Monday at 4 p.m. to all the floor representatives across the entire dorm system. So that amounts to roughly 64 floors and roughly, I want to say 25 or so representatives. So I just want to give you all an update of what's happening on the budget section of the dorms. Like I know y'all have your budget sections for the university, but we have completed our budgeting for residential life, and I just want to give you all the update for that over on our end. So okay, go to next slide, please. So yeah, so just to give a little bit of an overview, I'll talk about what RHA is, the budget assumptions for next fiscal year, the base rate for room and meal plans, also improvement options provided by RHA. Next slide, please. So what is RHA? So the way that I like to frame it is RHA is basically the equivalent of student government, but for the dorms. We act as a bridge for the residents and residential life administration to make sure that the people in the dorms have a very specific voice, to know that their elements are being heard, especially when that is their life that they're living in the dorms. So that's a very broad mission statement. So I'm not much of a person who wants to like have broad objectives. So over this academic year, me and my executive team have created 4 specific priorities for RHA. So those specific priorities are sourcing information, allocations, programming, and advocacy. Next slide, please. So this first thing, information, is giving information to everyone living in the dorms. So this is performed best through the Residence Hall Association meetings. So I do a lot of updates for myself on the president update every single week. So that update can include what's happening in the university in tandem to the dorms, like what's happening directly in dorms, or just a little bit of tidbits of information as the semester goes on. I also am the person that coordinates a lot of guest speakers because there's a lot of perspectives in the university that I cannot do like myself as an expert. So I just bring experts into the university and into the meetings to make sure their voices are heard as well. So that includes Diane Services, student events team, a little bit FSL, and also every single week our student government liaison, Trenton Knight. So yeah, so that's really good for sourcing information and making sure that everyone's in the dorm as well adept to what's happening in the campus and also within the university as a whole. Next slide, please. Okay, so next up is programming. So while RJ does act as primarily for advocacy, we also want to create a general sense of community in the dorms. So we have significant programming resources to make sure we're able to do these very high skill events. So like my favorite one is probably the Scientists Go and Crafts that was done in homecoming last semester. So it had roughly, I want to say 300 attendants. Now, like we had a very similar like aspect to Grocery Bingo, which is one of our cornerstone events that happened in the beginning of the semester, where we had like I want to say 10 rounds of bingo, with all of them being prized through groceries to emphasize the needs of groceries within residential life in the dorms. Next slide, please. So while we do have comprehensive programming that has a broad community, we also want to focus on Pacific community because there is like roughly 64 floors right now that are fostering their own community, and people want to have their community like given the resources to thrive. RJ wants to give those resources to them. So we are utilizing allocation process where if like you want to host an event or you want to make the community really good through an event, the sky's the limit. So if you're able to go to RHA and ask for funding, we will usually give you funding and information about how to apply for an allocation, apply for funding, and apply for resources just to make sure you're able to create a community within your floor so you as a person can thrive. Next slide, please. So I'd probably say advocacy is one of the best parts of RHA. Like while we do a lot of advocacy over in student government, RHA also thrives in just doing very niche and specific advocacy. So we do this through discussions, Stand for Change, and Liaison Time. So discussions is basically what we do for student academic affairs. Is that we do a lot of focus group work, and where I'm able to give a presentation to everyone in the representatives, and I'll just give them information. Like on a certain topic they'll be having for the rest of the semester or future change of residential life. And we'll be able to have that kind of focus group kind of area, just to make sure everyone's able to know what's happening, and make sure they're able to talk over what they believe should happen for residential life in the future. If we do have a really fruitful discussion and it does lead to tangible things, we usually take that to Statement for Change. Now, Statement for Change is basically a resolution for RHA. A really good Statement for Change that we had last semester was looking at the bus routes with Salem Heights. We recognize that over this academic year, especially on the weekends, it could take a lot of effort to walk to a bus stop that is closest to Salem Heights. And RHA is actively advocating for next academic year to have a bus stop closer to Salem Heights over the weekends because of the Statement for Change that I have personally drafted up to make sure that we are able to advocate for with local government in Mankato for next academic year. And advocacy also entails rates, so I'll dive right into that. Next slide. Okay, so rates, if you don't know, is basically the revenue and expenses of residential life for next academic year, and how much the expenses will cost for students. So the first side of the equation is revenue. So residential life is primarily made up of aspects as for housing and dining. So it makes sense that most of the revenue is rooms and meal plans. Next slide, please. Whereas the other side of the equation, expenses, a little bit less self-explanatory. So our main aspects are employees, dining, and facility improvement. I'll dive into facility improvement soon, but going into employees, there's a lot of different people to make residential life work right now. Like that could be student leaders like myself, also hall directors, assistant directors, other managers, and so on and so forth. Whereas for dining, like the reality is it does cost money to buy food. And I don't think that reality will change anytime soon, so the dining will remain a significant expense. And we also have other kind of expenses like supplies and equipment, other operating, and utilities. Next slide, please. So diving deeper into facility improvement is mostly repair and replacement, debt service, and renovations. So repair and replacement is basically saying like we have a lot of essential services and goods being provided by residential life, like that could be repaired and replaced at any moment. And residential life needs funding to have that stuff be repaired. These services can include dryers, washers, and the occasional exit sign. And we also have depth services as well. Like there's a lot of depths that residential life takes out, like just for buildings like Kirkowski Commons and Presca. So like there is certain stuff that needs to be done to fund for that. That's mostly done through depth services. And renovations, I'll get that into next slide. So next slide, please. Okay, so we have planned renovations for next academic year of roughly $3.9 million. So the majority of it is for renovating Crawford C Hall and making sure it's much easier to manipulate the temperature of the dorms. That'll be through hall radiators and AC. And also LED lighting of 1.3 million is a significant portion that has been happening over the past couple academic years, where residential life has been transitioning from standard lighting to LED lighting in all their facilities. And now that it's going to be required very soon, residential life is in the home stretch just to have funding for that renovation. So that'll be mostly done next academic year, and we'll see little to no funding for LED lighting after that. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, so we're getting out of facility improvement now, and it's general expense assumptions. So this is what we're going to forecast for next academic year for residential life. And when it comes to employees, it's pretty standard stuff of salaries for 5%, health insurance for 7.5%, so on and so forth. Next slide, please. And more expense forecasting, they're dying for 3.5% because reality is the food is increasing in price, and utilities will have a significant increase in the gas and other utilities, and other operating features will increase by roughly 5%. Next slide, please. Okay, so this slide right here is probably the meat and potatoes of this entire slideshow. So if you tuned me out for a little bit, that is completely valid. Please tune back in and just go into like this very document right here. So I'll be downloading this document and send it over to the Senate teams very soon. So if you want to do a very specific look into it, go for it. But if you want to take a little shortcut into analyzing it, look at column D, look at column E. So column D is the current base room and board rates for this academic year. And column E is the rates for next academic year that has been voted on by RHA. So that has been the approved rates or like approved budget situation that's been happening with the dorms over this academic year. So if you have absolutely any questions about this or want to dive deeper into it, I'd be more than happy to be a resource. So just talk to me or talk to Anthony about that as well through after this meeting, email, and so on and so forth. So next slide, please. So that's the bulk of like the actual budget stuff. But during RHA, we also had a conversation on improvements and different ways we could improve the university through expense options like base rates. During our conversations, we don't have anything that was an expense, but we did have a conversation that I think was a really good kickstart to it. Next slide, please. So one thing that we did improvement with no expense was having 2 hooks in bathroom stalls. So some bathroom stalls for the showers only had 1 hook in them, while some others had 2. And it might be a little more precarious to people that had hooks in 1 bathroom. So just to make everything a little more consistent, we want to just have 2 hooks in every bathroom stall with no expenses. Next slide, please. And we have 5 other things that we considered for RHA. This has been voted on by the General Assembly of Residence Hall Association. So we already had like 26 voting members already vote on this, and like they had a very definite decision on where these changes would happen through the factors of the actual wants of the service and the actual cost of the service. So again, if you want to look into this more, I'm definitely a resource. I'd be happy to talk about it. Next slide, please. Okay. That's everything I currently have. I'm more than happy to hear comments, but then again, this is not really a presentation for budget season. This is a presentation for y'all just to give, for me to just give info as RHA, make sure that y'all know what's happening. So yeah, I stand for questions.
Alrighty, I'll make a speakers list, so if you do have questions, just raise your little name card, and we can go through, or else on Zoom, just put your hand up, we can probably get out of the presentation then. So first up on the list is Senator Mackey.
So, I have a little bit of a question just to help ease some confusion for me. I saw that the dining plans for different rooms were different prices. Why is that? I would understand that rooms are different prices because they're different rooms, but dining plans are still the same dining plans.
I'm gonna yield to Anthony from that because I think that gives matter confusion.
Can you? Sorry, no, I'm just looking at the.
So,
I haven't looked at it.
Ben, just for clarification, like when you're looking at this, you're saying like, let's say like the Maverick Anytime, like the dollar amount for the Maverick Anytime changes depending on the room size. Is
Yeah,
kind of
like for a
for an
standard
example.
For a standard triple, it's 10,000, but for a double suite, it's 12,000.
I don't think that that's the change in the meal plan price. It's probably like
Oh, it's the change in
incorporating
the
the room.
both? Okay, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so column B accounts for both the room and the meal plan. So the changes between the different rooms is basically the changes for the room, not the meal plan.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, and the meal plans are set. And the meal plans will have a rate increase as well. That's the 3.5% that Andrew talked about. And we do that by contract with Sodexo based on the CPI, which gets checked in October. So.
Alrighty, Senator Zelmer.
So I know that RHA, I think you guys get about $6,000 for allocations. Is that correct, I believe?
So the budget has changed between last academic year and this academic year. So this academic year is $4,000, and we are currently on pace of hitting that goal of $4,000.
What is used with the extra money that you have left over if all that money isn't used?
It gets redistributed back into residential life. Like I know for student activity fee, like it could be distributed back to different areas, but for RHA, like our budget is set for next academic year, no matter how much we have left over.
Thank you. President Narala.
So if I'm getting it right, it's a 3.5% for a meal plan increase. What or we're just looking at the percent increases for meal plans and room and boards?
Yep, so meal plan, you're right, 3.5, that's what you said, right? And then rooms is 6.5.
And then a follow-up question for renovations. I know it's been in the conversations of looking at including cameras in the lobby spaces of residential halls. Is that part of a proposal for this year or no?
Not that I'm aware of. It's funny that you mentioned that because I've had several people talk to me about that recently. But from the plans that I've seen, like renovation wise, like what Andrew was showing for the C Hall renovations that are happening next year, I don't recall in the next coming years that cameras were in that budget, but
Thank you. Senator Mackey?
So, I know that there is, a bit of, on some floors, there's a bit of inactivity in the student event, or what's the?
Event coordinator, I think, yeah, community council.
Community council, and there are also some floors that have, significantly less events than other floors. Is there anything you guys, is that in your eyesight, or?
Absolutely, like it is something that I would like to just have more attention, more people over in RHA. Like the RHA end of it is definitely for floor presidents as opposed to like event coordinators like you're mentioning. But I do think like it is a responsibility of the entirety of residential life for hall directors, CAs, and RHA leaders. I'm doing whatever I can on my RHA leader end of it to make sure we have really good events for floor presidents and also as much resources as for event coordinators that are passionate about the event, are passionate about creating community.
And then Senator Zelmer.
With the 5%, and that's with the meal plans, right? Sorry, what was?
2.5.
3.5?
Meal,
Yeah.
6.5 room.
Okay, so with the 3.5, going to the meal plans, I know I've heard a lot of concerns from my constituency about the meal kind of quality. Like last semester, a student found a fly embedded in their pizza. Is this going to help assist and elevate the food quality expectations of students?
I would say a few things to that. I would hope that it would. Some other data that I would present that I just talked with our dining managers and stuff about. They just actually did a major health inspection, and their rates were even better than last year, which is like in the 97th percentile. So they are always striving to do more and to make sure that things are safe and to improve things and look at how they can do that. Can you remind me, tell me again what you said, Nolan? 'Cause, there was another piece I wanted to add to that, but I just left my brain.
I just said like, is the 3.5% going to like elevate the food quality expectations of students? Is what.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would, the other thing, the dining folks just did a survey, and all of the feedback was like really positive, for that. So I mean, they're always striving, they're always coming to me with new ideas on how to do things. I think part of that 3.5% would probably be working towards that, but like I also think that with inflation and everything, it's probably going also to food cost.
Yes, and just to add that, like I've also talked to constituents for residential life for different ways to improve the University Dining Center sanitation. Like when I do talk to the University Dining Center leadership, like it's almost always a quick response that's like it's just very reactive. So like it's like they do try their absolute best to make sure that they hear from my constituents and make sure like they're able to act on it not just in a reasonable time but just immediately. Yeah.
So just for a point of information, for you, Senator Zelmer, since you brought up dining and the food stuff. The RFP for the dining contract is up for review next year, so if anybody is interested in that, let next year's leadership know so you can be a part of that conversation. And that's for everybody if you're returning, I'm not, so, yeah. Yeah, and then I'm gonna go to Senator Karki on Zoom.
Thank you. That was actually kind of where my question was as well, is I remember in the first presentation, we kind of talked about how the change, possible change in partnership with in terms of dining can affect these. So is this increase in the dining kind of accommodating to that? Or can we anticipate more changes with that, with the new RFPs being finalized and the process going through that? And I have a follow-up question, but I'll let you go through that first.
So I want to, can you repeat the first question? Because I don't know that I completely followed it.
So you mentioned the 3.5%
Yep.
increase in meals, and with the RFP still being under review process and that yet to be finalized, with any expectation of possible changes in contract, is this kind of accounting for any of those changes, or can there be expectations of more changes once the proposals are finalized?
So kind of two separate processes. Our current contract with Sodexo runs through July of 26, I believe. So the 3.5% is for their operating stuff for next academic year. The RFP process is soliciting bids for folks who want to be our dining provider for the next 10 years. That could be Sodexo if they submit something. If it's a different company, there would probably be some different conversations happening. I would probably want to negotiate the same way that we do rate increases with Sodexo. Like, it's easy to use the consumer price index. Some of our colleague state schools don't necessarily use that, and their rates can kind of be all over the board. Like, that would be my answer. Hopefully that answers your question.
It kind of does, but also when you say these are going to the operations for Sodexo right now, do you have a little bit more detail on what, like, how is this going to, like, salaries and stuff, or is this going to bettering maybe the options for students, or like what kind of operations are we focusing on?
I don't have a specific breakdown of that 3.5%. If that's what you're asking, I mean, would it go towards all of those things? I'm guessing the answer would be yes, but I don't have a more specific breakdown of that.
Awesome, thank you. And just a quick question on the room and board increase of 6.5. I know you gave out that breakdown, and I was trying to see if like there's a difference between right now and a year later, but I couldn't find that. So is the 6.5% increase across all different plans, or are there inconsistencies for specific plans?
Nope. Or you mean different room types?
Mm-hmm.
It should be 6.5 for every room type.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Next on our list is Senator Ide.
All right. Thank you again for your spending your time on coming out here and giving a presentation. I just wanted to kind of ask a question for clarification. In your slideshow, you mentioned that I can't remember. I'm trying to pull it up on my computer, but that there was like 600,000 or 200,000 of your income from. I apologize. I should have this up for okay. $280,000 of your income is from interest. Could you just elaborate kind of what that means and what that is? I'm not sure what interest income is.
And I don't know that I have a great answer for that. Oh, Mark might be able to help.
I speak?
I yield to Mark.
When you have bonds out, you owe money back to the state. We give money to them. Because they hold all that money, we get interest back from the debt services on that money, and that's where that money is. The CSU gets interest as well, the same way off of our bond issues. Because the state's holding that money, we get some of that back.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you. And then Senator Prince.
Thanks for being here again. You mentioned the grocery bingo as a means to address food instability in the dorms, which is housed in Carcassi Commons. Hold on, sorry. I lost my spot. Are there any plans to further lessen food instability by working together with the food pantry?
I'll be presenting on this for next presentation, but there is efforts for more supplies for food pantry on the student end. We'll also have Anthony have more input on this as well for the administration end as well.
I mean, the food pantry is run through a different department, like they are renting space from us. So I mean, they have not approached for additional, like we haven't had any more conversations with them. So I don't know that there's more that are in the works or in the plans to do with the food pantry.
Are there any other questions? Anyone on Zoom? Alrighty, seeing none, thank you for coming and presenting. Alrighty, up next we have the student activity fee, and we have the SAC chair, Andrew Colleran, also presenting on this fee. You can bring your water up if you need. Okay, oh, sorry. And then, yeah. Senators, this is a big one, so make sure you have all your materials and everything ready.
Andrew, do you want me to fill up your water?
I would much appreciate it.
And then just give us a minute and we'll pull up the presentation. Vice President Jay?
I make a motion for a 2-minute recess.
Is this, okay, there's a second. Is there any dissent to that 2-minute recess? Are you seeing none? Please be back at 4:51.
Everybody get
Thank you.
prepared for this presentation and get ready to lock in.
You can get your water now. Yeah.
I mean.
Over under 30 minutes.
That's why we took a recess.
See.
The only reason I was asking is I just want to make sure if you ask me, like.
I mean,
Wow. Yeah. Possibilities, but I'm trying to wrap this up.
Sure, I'm gonna throw some.
On our end. I'll put the final set of recommendations. One way.
I want to remind everyone that we are still live on YouTube.
Every time we turn around, we lost another week.
Just in case we
another day.
forget.
So. You can do if you can make it tomorrow.
I'll get into that.
I'm glad we talked to the city bus people. I think that was huge. He asked me, he says, why didn't you invite us earlier? I said, well, here's the deal. I said, first students left, they didn't come back.
Don't worry about it now.
So I said, it didn't make a lot of sense. To invite you to last fall to a 30-member summit. 15 of them.
Thursday morning.
Revolving door.
Same flight.
And our committee was the same way. We had false starts, waiting a while for our
Grad student
ramped up. I just think we're gonna lose time. And this stuff is gonna be controversial.
We'll get,
22 cents may not sound like a lot, but when you add it on top of that, everybody else is going to be,
No, literally, so Ian can't look into my screen.
Yeah, because I do that a lot.
Yeah.
Alright, just thought I will lobby you,
Try to keep this short, people. Like you see this, no,
we've got a quorum and
Sunday will be a break.
You're gonna sit here
I do, I just don't wear it. I don't need
hour
to
and
short.
9 minutes.
Alright.
So I'm like.
Well,
That's all we're doing. Following week.
Is your
I wanted to make sure that I didn't break it. I was pretty sure I didn't, but I wanted to double check.
Bring all 10 class. 18, B team.
Airbnb, yep.
same place as last year, so it's about 14 to 15.
And
Then don't get caught up in my life.
Alrighty, folks, we are back in session after the recess. So folks on Zoom, please turn your cameras back on. That would be much appreciated. So then we're not staring at a blank screen. Thank you. Thank you. Alrighty, so now we will get into the nitty-gritty details, and we're gonna throw it off to the SAC chair, which is the Student Allocation Committee, which is responsible for the student activity fee, and SAC chair Andrew Collin is going to present. The floor is yours.
Well, hello everyone, and I'm just gonna put on my hat for Student Allocations Committee. So in case you don't know who I am, I'm Andrew Collin. I use he, they pronouns, and I'll be talking about the student activity fee. Slight disclosure to y'all, like there has been a little bit of changes to the schedule, so I'll be the only one presenting this presentation. So I might not be as knowledgeable about all the slides as I can be, but I'll try my absolute best for at least most of the slides. So thank you. I ask you for next slide. Okay, so just to give like a general structure of the Student Allocations Committee, it is a committee of 4 members, 3 senators and 1 non-senator. So it is mostly a student body represented to make sure we are able to do the dirty work of all the budgets and everything that's happening within the 26 different areas that is for student activity fee. So we have a secondary purpose of hearing out the program and child funding requests for different RSOs. As President Nirala has mentioned, it is a function of us to look into the funding for different RSOs to make sure they're able to have the resources to thrive as an organization and its work as an organization. So, but we also have the primary responsibility of listening to different departments across the student activity fee and making recommendations for next academic year. So we have spent the last 2 months over these budgets for department hearings and deliberations, which has amounted to roughly 20 hours over the past 5 weeks. So, and that's just not even including the presentation work on this. So next slide, please. So before we get into the actual budget numbers, I do want to just go over the philosophy of Student Allocations Committee. We focus heavily on student impact and retention. We look at all 26 different areas, and we analyze on like how much student impact are they doing with their money? Would they be able to utilize their more student impact if they were given the request, and how that would work as an organization. And same thing for retention. We also had a secondary emphasis on support student leadership and growth, bringing unique experiences to the university, budget efficiency, and outreach to students. Next slide, please. Okay, so I'll be going over, I want to say roughly 26 slides of this exact slide layout. So I'll just give y'all like a little brief intro on what the slide is supposed to look like. So for the very top, there'll be 3 boxes, 24-25 base, 25-26 requests, and SAC recommendation. So 2025 base is basically what the department has received over this fiscal year. So fiscal year 25, so this current academic year, that's what the department has received. The mailbox 2025-2026 request, that's what they're requesting for next fiscal year or next academic year. And the third box is what SAC will be recommending for this specific line. So without further ado, I'll go into it. Next slide, please. So here's just the general format of it, just the top 3 boxes, and we'll do recommendation and then reasons. So going straight into it for the recommendation of campus recreation. This will be the biggest budget line that we have. So we are looking into an increase for $28,422. So the reason why there is such a big cost object to begin with is because campus recreation encompasses a lot. Like it encompasses the full-time equivalent employees, the 150 student workers, and also all the services provided by our recreation center for the most part. So like there's a lot of things that go into this budget, and the main reason for this increase is for the increase for compensation for full-time equivalent people within the certain cost object. And the Student Allocations Committee also recognizes that there is a lot of efforts from this area to do work study, which has the funding go from the students' pockets to the state's pockets. So there's been a lot of efforts from this academic year for student workers, and Student Allocations Committee really appreciates them doing those efforts for next academic year. It looks forward to them for making that work. Next slide, please. Okay, so for a lot of the requests that we have right now is that we are giving a 0% a request. So that's what I call like a flatline request. So it's like 2024, 2025 base is just the same thing across the board. So they are doing really good. They're doing decent with the resources they have right now. They want more resources, and the student occasions committee agrees. So it's just a flatline recommendation, and that's where we are for Sports Club. Next slide, please. Okay, Maverick Adventures. So Maverick Adventures is a organization with focuses heavily on outdoor adventures. So I know there has a multiple people coming up to this exact podium talking about different like excursions to go on, like ice fishing, like a walk on trails, and they also host the rock climbing wall and the ropes course. And they have a new like adventure going to the ropes course, and just to heavily start that working and heavily start investing in that. Because while this increase is $9,411, it is investment into a new operation in Maverick Ventures, which is the rope course, which does require the constant maintenance because we live in Minnesota, but also requires the maintenance of student workers as well. So that's why there is a significant increase to this specific area, and why SAC recommends this increase. Next slide, please. Okay, campus recreation equipment. So they had 15,000 last academic year. They requested 20,000, and the Student Occasions Committee decided to grant roughly half of that for 2,750. SAC recognizes that there is this is not a yearly expense fund. Like it is something where they save up money to make significant expenses across the academic years, because equipment for the auto rec center, like treadmills, weight equipment, like all that stuff has significant costs. It's like they have to have a significant savings to pay off that cost in a decent manner. So that's why we're doing roughly a 2,750 increase. Next slide, please. Speech and debate. So for speech and debate, aka forensics, we are recommending an increase of $1,000. So we recognize that with this request, they had two kind of reasons for it. First reason was inflation. Like as you all may know, like the inflation has been increasing a lot over these past couple academic years, and that inflation has specifically hit people hard for travel. So and especially for a speech and debate fund, almost all this is travel. So the Student Occasions Committee recognizes that they need more funding for travel to combat current inflation, but they also recognize that there is some stuff happening where the press is also asking for more outreach into competitions to go farther out than the local level. So we want to just we just want to specialize and hyperfixate on the inflation rather than going beyond the local level. Next slide, please. Okay, gender and sexuality program. So we are recommending an increase of $10,000. So what this program kind of does right now is that it provides the programming for the LGBT Center and the Women's Center. Now, this program actually kind of falls under the umbrella of the VARP Center as well, Violence Awareness Response Program. And right now, the current situation for the LGBT Center and Women's Center is that they split the money, and then VARP just has the only opportunity to skim off that money. So it's like the current kind of thought process for a Student Occasions Committee, like there should actually be a cost and like actual revenue given to VARP, because they are a program that is investing so much into the student body, and it might be time for the student body to invest in them for their programming. So while we're not able to have a contract for specific learning for VARP like they requested between the $55,000 and $80,000, we do recognize that there is a need for more funding for VARP as an organization in this university. Next slide, please. Okay, next up is KIC, Curing International Center. So this kind of cost area focuses mainly on the KIC office and all the student organizations in ISA. So they did request a significant amount to further fund and further look into and further invest the programming for the university and their international students, which does have a valid reason, because we are the top 15 university for international students in the entire country. And SAC recognizes that while we do not have the funding for increase like significant as $104,000, we do recognize that there should be an increase and there should be more resources to our international students. So we're able to create a community and able to have the students have the resources to thrive as a university that is giving so much resources over to them to make sure they're able to be a really good student that just contributes significantly to the culture of this university. Next slide, please. Okay, Maverick Food Pantry. So Maverick Food Pantry is like one of those areas that has multiple revenue sources. but the revenue sources that is for specifically for Student Allocations Committee is food. So as we've seen with the dining services increases for residential life, the food costs for food pantry has also increased, and also the demand for food pantry has increased as well, as I significantly increased between this academic year and next academic year. So while they do request a significant increase, the Student Allocations Committee recognizes that there is a need for the specific service and the need for students to be provided the basic need of food, and ensuring that there is no food insecurity in this university, or at least trying to minimize it. And it has been communicated to the allocation committee that there is, this is the current rate that we have for the Mag Food Pantry as where it starts to plateau for students that will be utilizing food. So while the cost for the Mag Food Pantry has been increasing exponentially, it is looking to plateau pretty soon. So we are just having this initial increase right now, just in preparation for that. Next slide, please. Multicultural student activities. So this is another flatline request where we recognize that they are doing really good with the resources, and they are now requesting for more resources. So we're just going to give them the same amount. Next slide, please. Music ensembles. So music ensembles is a high impact program here at the university that is mostly for orchestra, automatic machine, a couple more music organizations in this university. So what they're usually requesting for us funding is equipment, and recognizing that while there is some students who take their own equipment, they'll also recognize that they have their own equipment for the university, and it does cost money to repair that equipment or replace it. So while this is a material increase, it is something that is considered necessary to adapt to the increases of needs for equipment replacement. Next slide, please. Okay, non-budgeted request fund. So this is where all the travel and program requests has been happening for the next fiscal year. So it's in our flat line where we recognize that $20,000 is a significant amount, and it is likely that we are able to exhaust that amount through the Student Allocations Committee. And on the likely situation that we do exhaust that amount of $20,000, we'd be doing something very similar to what's been done during this Senate meeting, where we would allocate more money from the reserves and into RSO request funds to make sure that we're able to give resources to RSOs through the request funds of travel and programs. Next slide, please. Repertory Dance. So Repertory Dance is one of those organizations that is heavily focused on travel. So they do have a request that is they do have a request that is submitted to the Student Allocations Committee across the spring semester. So that is not included in this general request right now, but they're mostly just doing this for operating expenses and just to function as an organization for Repertory Dance. And it is in our flatline organization, so it is something where we are confident in this recommendation. Next slide, please. Reporter. So while Reporter does have a couple revenue streams, the specific revenue stream for student activity fee is specifically for 2 full-time equivalents. So it's recognizing that these people that are kind of not that we can change too much and just looking to increase for 2 full-time equivalents for the next fiscal year that increases along with the general increases for salary and benefits. Next slide, please. Okay, so like the Campus Recreation Fund, there's also the reporter equipment, where it's recognizing that while the report is working right now, there is a chance that the equipment that they have could be very old and it could be failed onto the reporter very soon. And if that equipment is failed, they don't currently have any funds to replace the equipment. This fund right here will be the resources they would have to replace that equipment. And when the eventuality does happen where the equipment does fail, they would have the resources to resupply that equipment and continue operating at a regular level. Next slide, please. Staff administration. So staff administration is basically the people that are looking over the entirety of the fees. So this does not just include the student activity fee, it includes the other fees within the universities, like CSU fee, athletic fee, so on and so forth, and just managing those fees. And those are the full-time equivalent people that do that work. So the increase of $11,750 is mostly for the increases with salary and benefits. And then we also recognize that we're just going to decrease the recommendation and request by a difference of $300 because it was budgeted for the Student Allocations Committee to have $400 for food. I realize maybe just $100 is just enough to get us through a whole academic year. Next slide, please. Okay, student activities and administrative benefits. So this is probably the same exact story for the staff office. So where it's like it's mostly almost all of it is full-time equivalent employees that have already been contract negotiated, and we're just adjusting to the increasing needs of salary and benefit compensation. So that's why we're doing an increase of $8,651. Next slide, please. Community engagement. So this is also known as Mavs in Action. So this is an organization that focuses heavily on community engagement and also student outreach and impact. So the Student Engagement Committee really recognizes that while they are an organization that recognize that they have the resources that they have right now and they are not looking to increase the resources, the Student Engagement Committee does recognize that they are doing a really good job with their money and a really good job making sure that they're able to utilize the money to the most of their ability. Next slide, please. Fraternity sorority life. So the Student Engagement Committee recommends either increase or decrease. And it is just for noticing that like the fraternity sorority life does have a lot of resources at their disposal for different fundings, whether it be food fundraising or the travel request fund. The travel request fund does recognize that there is a lot of resources for people, a lot of resources where a lot of different organizations could request and make sure they're able to have that work for them. And next slide, please. Homecoming. So homecoming has been recommended to have an increase of $1,500. So that increase is mostly for inflationary reasons. So I think the homecoming has not been increased since fiscal year 13. So that's roughly 13 years where it's not been too many adjustments, while inflation has continued to adjust. So that's why there has been an increase of roughly $1,500, and we recognize that recognize that the student activities team can use homecoming to just maximize what they currently have. The resources. Next slide, please. Leadership, MIT. So we are recommending a decrease of $4,000, and this is just recognizing that stipends of the Maverick Involvement team could be utilized through more compact hours, like where it's like right now they have office hours across their area where they have the function more like a work study opportunity as opposed to a stipend or like employee opportunity where you're able to like actually study and actually work at the same time with your certain responsibilities. So the Student Engagement Committee recognizes that there are other funding that could be utilized to have greater student impact and can maybe just condense the workload and condense the hours of the MIT team, and they would have similar results still. Next slide, please. Non-traditional student resource center. So this is the only line item in this entire budget where the Student Engagement Committee recommends more than what was requested. The Student Engagement Committee recognizes that a non-traditional student resource center is a very necessary resource. As a resource that recognizes non-traditional students as a demographic that's not really cared towards this university, is not really given the opportunities for programming and sense of community. As someone who myself is very involved in student involvement, I only hear about the center during the budget hearings. And I don't hear about the center during the actual day-to-day life, and the funding of it could be a factor to that. So we are recommending an increase to the center, even though they're requesting the same amount than they were last academic year. Next slide, please. RSOs is another flatline request. We recommend they are funding as requested just to ensure we have resources for different things like the supply center for the student activities area. Next slide, please. Student events team. So while it does look like we are recommending $5,000 less than they're requesting, that's not actually the case. So I'll dive into this a little bit after the rest of the slide. So we are recommending an increase of $7,000 and $975 as well. So like the increase for that is kind of in three factors: inflation, stipends, and one-time expense. So the inflation is recognizing that student events team has not been materially increased for a long time, and so the programming that they're doing has not really adjusted for inflation either. So like that is a adjustment for inflation for that kind of funding. And the second thing is for stipends, is just making sure that we're able to adjust to the hourly wage that is being recommended by the wage subgroup right now, and just to match the $13. And the final thing is the one-time expense. So the one-time expense is for $5,000, and it's a re-rating for fiscal year 26. So as some of y'all may know, the university is required to is requiring rebranding for some organizations as we go into the launch of the new brand. And while that requirement has not been officiated yet, the student team want to be really ahead of the game, and they want to make sure they have the funding to make that rebranding work during next fiscal year, as opposed to scrambling when that requirement happens next fiscal year. So that $5,000 is a one-time expense, and it will be brought into the reserves as opposed to the specific requests. So that's why the request and the recommendation is a difference of $5,000. We're still granting them the same amount of money. And we also recognize that the student team is data-driven and responsive organization, especially of how much they use Math Central to realize just how effective an event is or how ineffective it can be, so they can tweak it a little bit to perfect college programming. Next slide, please. Okay, student government. So we're recommending an increase of $6,585. So the majority of this increase goes towards a $2,000 increase just for projects. Because for student government, we recognize that there are a lot of center projects that are happening, and many of the projects need to get on their feet, and to get on their feet, like, it often requires funding. And right now, there's not much resources to make that work for people. So like, if we have a $2,000 fund to make that work for next academic year, so people are able to get their projects on their feet through funding, it could really help them and help their project grow and blossom. And there's also the aspect of 2% increase for the cabinet, which is the president, vice president, speaker salaries. Now, the reason why there's a difference between request and recommendation is because of requests for increased pay in coordinators. And while we recognize for a student occasions committee that there is a lot of need for more compensation for coordinators, we also want to see increase of standard pay as well, which was not reflected in the request. So next slide, please. Theater. So theater is one of those organizations that like the reporter has a lot of different revenue streams, and we are recommending a decrease of $1,500 because of those revenue streams that are projected to increase for next fiscal year through the foundation and through ticket sales. So, and we also recognize that the theater is able to make up that difference to those additional revenue sources. So next slide, please. Veteran Service Program. So this is our flatline organization where the organization recognizes that they are doing a really good job with the funding that they do have. They don't want to increase their funding. Next slide, please. Okay, that is all 26 line items. So congratulations, y'all, for getting through this. So for the overall budget impact, we're like the fiscal year 25 base for all 26 line items is $2.78 million, whereas what has been requested is $2.97 million. And what the Student Allocations Committee recommends is $2.89 million. So just to break it down a little bit more and put reserves into this equation so we have a base recommendation of that $2.8 million. We're also going to add the $5,000 of reserves, and our total final recommendation is $2.89 million. Yeah, so I think the number that is probably most important in this particular slide is the 5.4%. That is what the percent we're going to recommend to increase between this fiscal year and next fiscal year because of the needs of the different line items in this university and in the student activity fee. Next slide, please. Okay, and if you're an accounting major like me and just want to get into the nitty-gritty of the numbers, here's the nitty-gritty. So we have a per credit of we have a forecast of 279,610 different credit paying hours. So if you multiply that, if you have the amount that we're recommending by the base amount, not including reserves, and divide that by the current student paying credit hours for next academic year, that gives you $10.34. And when you do the percentage difference in what is recommended for $10.34 and what we currently have for this academic year of $9.81, that's a difference of roughly 5.4%. That's where we get our number of a 5.4% increase. And then in the current cost of a term for the sensitivity fee, if it's supposed to be approved with absolutely no edits, there will be a cost of $124.08 per term. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, I believe that's everything I have. Again, congratulations everyone for making it through this presentation. I stand for questions.
Yeah, So President Narala has appointed information, so I'll let you go.
I wanna thank you and all of the rest of the committee for all of the work that you've put in. For all of the senators, if you weren't present for the joint committee sessions for the last couple of weeks and you have questions about procedures, if you have questions about Robert's Rules of Orders, anything else, a lot of the information is available on Teams. And we're here to help you navigate the budget process, so feel free to ask questions to us outside as well. I would also keep our questions limited to SAC recommendations. Any questions that you have about individual departments, I would refer it over to the departments outside of Senate, and we'll help you navigate and ask those questions accordingly. Thank you.
Alrighty, so now I'm gonna open up the floor for questions. Any questions? Senator Ide.
You mentioned you'd go more into detail with that one fee, I'm blanking on the name of it, but the one where you said it's like 5,000, it looks like you're cutting 5,000, but you're not. Did you have more information on that?
Yes, so I did not properly explain the reserves. So the reserves is a kind of like a rainy day fund that we have for the student activity fee, where it is mostly there for emergency fund. Like we do have amount that is more, we do have amount within that current reserves that's above the rainy day fund threshold. So all the money that is above that threshold we can utilize to take out of that specific reserve to be utilized for funding. So we recognize that for the one-time funding for the student events team, that $5,000 is one-time funding, and if we're able to take that $5,000 out of the reserves and instead of outside the students' pockets, that could be a really good thing just to help with both funding for student events team, but also making sure the students are not being asked too much money for the fee.
Thank you.
We'll yield to John.
If I can just provide commentary on that, when you have things that you spend every year, that is what's called your base, okay? That $5,000 that they've asked for rebranding, they're not gonna need to do that every year. So that's why we're calling it one-time funding. If it's not ongoing and they're not gonna need to rebrand every single year, you don't need to fund it every year. So that's a good use of reserves, is for something that's not gonna be repeated every year. So the base is stuff that they anticipate spending year after year.
Senator Zelmer.
Oh, this is kind of a general question, Roche, that you can chip in on if you need to, but what do we have in the reserves, and does that amount increase over a year? Like, is there some kind of formula to that we will be increasing that amount over a year? Is it just we have $20 and next year we have nothing?
Okay, I'll give my 2 cents on this and hand it over to Roshit. So I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but it is roughly the amount that it would take for the current budget across a 90-day kind of area. So, but like there is no active revenue that goes straight into the reserves fund. Like there is mostly a deficit from the reserve fund, mostly from the student activity like request and travel fund. Like we just approved on the consent agenda for $10,000 to be taken out of the reserves. It's like I would assume like there is some ways for things to be back added to reserves. There's no active mechanism to add things into the reserves. Rosha, could you touch on that for a second?
Yeah, there is. So from my understanding, we have about closer to $400,000 in reserves. There is a way that money could be theoretically added, and it is if the departments have a surplus of money that they have not committed. There are bylaws and regulations on how departments are able to carry that money forward over to next year from their uncommitted balances, and then a certain percentage of it is kicked back into reserves if they don't spend that money. So that is one way that it's kicked back into reserves. Does that answer your question? Yes, thank you. Awesome.
Senator, this is your second question.
Furthermore, to kind of backpedal off of Nolan's question, is there somewhere to see where where the reserve money goes? I don't know if it's spent like that or how often it's spent, but like it's kind of like I don't want to say a budget breakdown, but just like a curiosity.
For specifically the reserve amount?
Yeah.
There is a way we could look into it. We did not tap into the reserves for this year. But we could ask, are you asking to see?
Well, it's not, I don't know, it's kind of just like a curiosity thing. I'm not actively searching into the reserves.
Of
It's
just how the
just like-
money's flowing in and out of the
Yeah.
resources? Okay, we can definitely.
It only flows out like if SAP requests something like this for them to pay out $5,000 to someone. That's the only time money would get taken out of the reserve is if this kind of recommendation.
Okay, sorry, I know this isn't a super SAP.
I'll yield to Mark and John.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that is that the only time something would be taken out of reserves is if this body gives the approval to do that. That's like on the consent agenda this past time, why the extra $10,000 going to that travel and programming. SAC would recommend that back to this group would approve those that something come out of reserves.
And then I'll yield to John.
I think there might be an additional, like say for example, we budget for a 3% increase in salaries and benefits. And say the contracts actually settle at 4%. Then those funds would come out of reserves to cover that gap a little bit if there's just a gap there. So there's never an intentional spending down, it would cover that if there's a little bit of a gap there. We've also seen reserves say our credit hours come in a little bit less than we project. If reserves need to cover some of that, that can as well. So, but as Mark mentioned, if we intentionally spend out of reserves, it's usually based on an action of the Senate.
Okay, I'm just unfamiliar with the reserve process, so thank you, I appreciate that.
Senator Riggle?
If this question is off topic, feel free to tell me no. But I was just curious, is it just the 3 centers that are focused in the gender and sexuality programs? So just the LGBT center, just the women's center, just FARP, just the 3?
Yes.
Okay.
Senator Hilstad?
All right, I'm looking at the gender and sexuality programs too, and I'm just wondering, could you share the committee's rationale and discussion on FARP programming, and how are they supported under gender and sexuality programs?
I can definitely try. So could you go back to the slide for gender and sexuality programs? Okay, so the thought process for the request increase was for a contract for education on VARP, so violence awareness and response. Though the original purpose of the programming of gender and sexuality program is mostly to fund RSOs and to fund efforts from different student leadership. So the Student Allocation Committee recognizes that while we not really have the primary purpose of doing funding for a contract, we do have the primary purpose of funding for programming. And there is a need for programming within the violence awareness and response program because they kind of act as a way to still advocate for people in that demographic, just more of a more preventative manner than reactionary manner. So it is important to have both sides of that equation of preventative and reactionary. And the violence awareness response program does a really, really good job of that. And while they are doing a great job right now, they need the resources to do an amazing job. So that's why the Student Allocations Committee recognizes that amazing job needs to be done through this funding.
Do you have a comment? Yeah, I'll talk on too. Andy makes really good points, and what they emphasize in that presentation is right now VARP is getting crumbs, and we recognize the importance of the work of prevention rather than being reactionary, and that's why I want to have a solid base of support for them.
I just asked just because I wanted to support it, and so support VARP. But I just wanted to know what's the rough estimate of cost that they want for this year? That's a follow-up to that. Would you know that exact number by your head? But
no, I don't have the exact estimate of cost. So we do the cost of it is between different, very different needs of say events, programming for different RSOs, and other kind of other expenses to that. So there is no specific numbers provided to us for a specific forecast to the committee. We do recognize that there's a need that is falling in that ballpark of $65,000.
Thank you.
Point of information for those of you who did not attend committee today, underneath the SAC folder and Teams under the budget presentations, you'll see this presentation, you'll see a lovely breakdown spreadsheet, and then you'll see a folder that has every single department's budget breakdown and what they requested. So if you do your homework before the budget meeting and actually look at all the individual requests within the SAC recommendation, then you can find out all this information. So please attend committee meetings.
I had another
Senator
point of
Riggle.
information.
Yeah.
I work with these programs, and so if you have any specific questions or whatever, you can always reach out to me. Because I don't know, I work with these meetings on a daily basis. So if you have any questions and you need them to be answered, you can reach out to me and I'll get back to you.
Are there any other questions for SAC? Anyone on Zoom? Sorry, I don't have like Zoom in front of me, so I don't know if anybody on Zoom has a question. I'm seeing like no's from my Zoom folks. Alrighty, if there are no other questions, thank you for presenting the SAC budget. Alrighty, so now moving on into our agenda is the officer reports. So we do have President Narala up first, and I will yield to you.
Awesome, thank you so much. The first item on my report is to share that I was on our hockey game last weekend, and I'm so happy to report Mavericks winning 5-1 against Bemidji last weekend. All the best for our Mavericks as they enter into quarterfinal for Mason Cup. I think I got it right, but it was a really energizing match to see Mavericks winning against Bemidji. A couple of updates. Last week I was able to attend the foundation board meeting, and I was able to present to the foundation board. We also talked a little bit about foundation grants, and I'm really happy to report that they'll be looking into the metrics of foundation grants and how they're administered to different students, so that way they're able to expand the total number of students that will be eligible for foundation board grants. I was also able to meet with Vice Provost Musali to talk about wellness days recommendations. It does look like it'll be a tough accommodation to have wellness days. We did talk about other opportunities in regards to federal regulations with Veterans Days in the future and how that might incorporate into fall calendars. From that meeting, I do have one thing that I want to share, and I did send a message on Teams folder. For those of you who are new, this might be something that is entirely new to you, but we did used to have a different final exam schedule and how it was administered over to students. The provost's office is looking out for feedbacks on the change in exam schedules. So those of you who are returning, think about how finals exam were administered before and how they were administered last fall. And then definitely go into Teams folder. I've sent out a chat. I'll send another one after the Senate meeting, and go ahead and just write your feedbacks. Go talk with your friends, with your constituents, and then share what you hear from them into that folder, so that way we'll be able to tee that feedback up and send it over to them. For those of you who are new, definitely go out and talk with your constituents to get a understanding of feedback with the final exam schedule. How does that look for students having final exams on the first or second meeting day of their finals week, having exams pushed earlier, so that way students are able to, so that students don't have to go out of their way to schedule off days from work, or they are able to better plan out their finals exams and everything else. Definitely write your feedback up, and we'll be more than happy to share it by this Friday. As we're entering into budget season, I do want to highlight, if you go into Teams, into this student fee process documents, if you scroll a little down, John has done an amazing job of putting together all of the fee areas and creating Word documents for individual fee areas, so that you can go in and write your questions. As we go into budget season, I highly recommend that you go in and write your questions, especially for the departments that are pertaining to student activity fee. If you have questions about four different departments, go in and write your questions on there. If you plan on inquiring about different departments or their budgets during the big budget meeting, we want to know, so that way they're in the room and you're able to inquire with them as we make those decisions together. The other piece of information, as we enter into budget season, we'll be meeting with the president's cabinet for meet and confer later tomorrow, actually. We'll be talking about tuition increases and getting a proper guidance on what that looks like, and we'll also be reviewing banding changes, discussions that are going on at the university level. If you have any questions and you wanna learn more, you know where to find me. I did have the opportunity to meet with 2 vice presidential candidates on Monday, and it looks like the ones for today have been canceled. I do wanna thank you all for coming in person, and for those of you who are online for still attending and engaging with our Senate meetings, even though everything has been online for today. Thank you so much. For the vice presidential meetings that were scheduled for today, they've been moved into the Monday of spring break. Now, I know this is gonna be a logistical challenge for a lot of you, but if you're in town, please consider attending. There's also a Zoom component, so if you are free during that time, consider attending the open sessions over Zoom, so that way you're able to review the candidates and provide us or fill out the forms and provide feedbacks. This is really important, as both of these positions for IT solutions, they work really closely with students, and you should go out and look at their portfolio, look at how they present, have a conversation with them and give their feedback. For Vice President of Advancement, if you go ahead and graduate, you'll be connecting with them because they work closely with the Alumni Center. So definitely go out and attend both if you can. If not, look out for times that work out for you. And then I'll be sending out a sign-up sheet, so if you guys are available, fill out your names and we'll be more than happy to send out calendar invites. The other piece that I will send out, if you guys need your placards, please go ahead and write your names or send me a text in Teams. We're gonna make sure all of you have your placards ahead of budget season. That's the final piece of update that I have for you guys. I'll be attending Student United Board of Directors meeting over at Washington DC for spring break. So if I'll be out of office and not responding, that's why. We'll be pushing our federal agenda, which includes expanding Pell Grant and ensuring standard definition for financial aid at the federal level. But if you have any questions, or anything that you wanna chat about, you know where to find me. That's it, I stand for questions.
Any questions? Already seeing none, I will yield to Vice President Jay for her report.
Hey guys, I will try to go through this quickly. As Roshit mentioned, our vice president search for a new VP for advancement. We have had one candidate on campus on Monday that went well. And our other 2 candidates will be on campus this Friday and then this coming Monday. Like Roshit said, times had to get moved around due to weather, and candidate traveling. If you're interested in attending the open forums, want to know how the search is going, please reach out to me. Nominations for student government awards are due Friday, March 21st. So that is coming up. There was a link and an email sent to everybody's emails. It was a week or 2 ago. So if you want me to resend that to you all, I definitely can. It's Administrator of the Year Award, the Dr. Dwayne Orr Teacher of the Year, and then the Vic Swenson Student Friendly Award. All 3 of those, anyone can nominate. I highly recommend, if you would like to, please do. These will all be announced at the recognition ceremony, which is on Wednesday, April 16th, starting at 4 p.m. in the CSU Hearth Lounge. There will be a Zoom component for anyone that will need that. Everyone here is invited to that ceremony. And then during our student government banquet, end of the year stuff, we will again recognize those people along with any textbook heroes. Those are faculty and staff that use OER resources, open educational resources, which are free textbooks or more inexpensive options, things like that. So if you have a professor or know a professor that uses those, please let us know, because we want to recognize those people and thank them for everything that they're doing for students. We'll be sending out a form for that after spring break. If you want to be involved with Senate next year, you need to apply with the form on Math Central. President and VP, the positions available for application are President and Vice President. You must run as a pair. Senator positions, and then committee and board positions. president and VP applications are due in 20 days. That includes weekends and spring break and everything. 20 days from now, March 25th. All other applications are due March 31st, which is in 26 days. Rules readings times have been set and communicated to current applicants. If you're interested in knowing about those, let me know. Posters with all information about applying for election and how to vote will be going out Monday after spring break. So we do have some stuff going out. It's just gonna be after spring break because nobody is thinking about anything other than spring break right now. And that's okay, because everybody needs a break. My last thing, everyone needs to put on their calendars, Wednesday, April 9th at 5 p.m. This is the Student Government versus Student Affairs and Enrollment Management Bowling event. Senate meeting that day will be short, only about an hour. And then we will all head down to the Maverick Bullpen in the lower level of CSU, and food will be provided for this event. So one more chance for us to win.
Any questions or comment?
I'll just expand a little bit on that. We will definitely win. But I know we've got questions about speaker. Folks who are considering applying for speaker, you won't be applying into the general election cycle. Any student is able to run for speaker once the first meeting of the 93rd student government commences.
Any other questions for VPJ? Senator Ide?
I'm sorry, did you say April 9th? Okay, thank you.
That's someone's birthday.
Alrighty, no other questions for VPJ. I'll go into my report. I gave that look to President Norello because that's my birthday. Fun times. Alrighty, so first thing that I have, actually really happy that our Dean of the Day was here and reminded me about policy reviews, because I think you all just got an email from Dr. Veltzos about the HLC Assurance Commission committee. So I'm on that. I'm one of the student representatives on that committee. So I have been working with Dr. Kammer for like the last semester and everything on this whole thing. It's been a lot of work. So for students, I believe that feedback is going to be coming in a form of a survey as well. So if you can take the survey, that'll help, because it kind of goes to the higher committee, so not just to the university HLC committee, but also to the folks above it from the actual higher ed learning commission accreditation. So it's basically to get our university re-accredited, so we're actually an accredited university and your degree matters and counts. So if you've seen that pop up in your inbox, in your email, please take the time. I think it's pretty short. I think it's a 5-minute survey. It's really brief. If you can just take that, that'll help. And then that'll help us keep hopefully try to keep some programs that you're interested in that you don't want to see go bye-bye. And just help back the academic portfolio review too as well. So that's one thing. I don't think I really have anything else. Oh, we have meet and confer tomorrow. That'll be lovely. So we'll bring you all back updates on that. Not next week, but the week after, because next week is spring break. So yes. And then we do have our last set of fee presentations the week after spring break. I believe that's Centennial Student Union, so the board for the CSU, sustainability and technology. I believe are the last 3 fees that need to come and present, so that'll be the week after spring break. Their materials should be in the presentation folder, hopefully that Monday of the week we return. But also over spring break, please do your homework on all the budgets and everything, especially with the SAC one, because that's a whole big puzzle. And then also all the other fees, please review them too as well, the ones that we heard last week as well. And please send anyone who came to present those questions that you might have for them, because then they can get it to specific departments too, because we will need a list of departments you might want to bring in by the 21st at the latest, but the 19th is highly recommended. So then we can communicate that with these departments. That's everything that I had. Yes. Alrighty, any questions for me? Alrighty, seeing none, we'll move on to senator reports. Senator Bugney had to step out, but he will submit a written report and I'll upload that to the teams and also share that next week as well. Senator Isaac sent in a written report that's in the teams. He also has like a little like Canva PowerPoint presentation in there as well. So please take a look at that. Senator Maega also sent in a written report, so please take a look at that. Senator Colleran will be sending in his written report next week, just to make it all look nice and pretty. And then Senator Mpenga is also sending in a written report, so that's also in Teams. Senator Moore's written report is also in Teams. So the only report that we have that's verbal is Senator Lee. I think you're surprised that you're giving your report today. I think you forgot.
You can do a written one if you'd like.
Yeah, do you want to submit a written report for next week? Yeah, alrighty, we'll just.
Can I do it after spring break?
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
that works.
hold
Yeah,
on.
after our spring break, so in like
All
2
good.
weeks. That's okay, life happens. So that's all of our senator reports. And then the vacancies are closed, so no vacancies. And then moving on to new business, we don't have any. Old business, we also don't have any. And then now, gotta get my pen ready for announcements. Any announcements? Senator Zelmer.
I just wanna do a quick shout out to facilities management and David for the hard work that they put in last night and this morning to clearing campus of a lot of snow. So thank you to all those people. I saw them clearing snow at like 3 in the morning today, which is great.
Are there any other announcements? John.
Thank you. Just a reminder, the last housing fair of the year is taking place the Tuesday after spring break. So if there is anybody who you know who is still searching for housing, or if you yourself would like to meet with any of the property managers, they will be here on campus from 10 to 1 on Tuesday, the 18th. In addition to that, I will also be presenting the last Renting 101 info session of the year, which I go through the process of how to search for housing and all that kind of stuff, what it means to sign a lease and things to think about as you're navigating that process. I do a presentation at noon on that day in Ostrander as well. So that's coming up. And I would like to thank those who have asked some good questions and gave good presentations today, especially with the Student Allocations Committee and Andrew. As I mentioned, your biggest obligation through this is to be prepared, to ask good questions, and to do your research. If you have questions about that, again, I want you to feel like you're informed and making well-informed decisions and asking well-informed questions. There's no dumb question to ask me, okay? And so I help people through this every year. I've gotten used to this process pretty well and can help you if you have questions, whether it's process oriented or what happens if we do this versus this, or why would they ask for this? I can try to help you answer those questions if you can't find the answer in the documentation that you've been provided access to. So please, again, don't be ashamed or afraid to ask any question. We can help you through this process. It's very consequential. So.
Thank you, John. Senator Livingston.
I just want to plug the Maverick Bipartisan Roundtable. That's happening Thursday, March 20th, which is the Thursday after spring break. Opportunity for you, everyone in this community to pursue, specifically to have sessions, have a discussion about issues facing college students, especially after a very fraught election. And so I invite you all, if you want to have a say what we're talking about, there is a form outside the student government office with the QR code. Highly encourage you to submit that form and also attend. It's most likely going to be in the flexible programming space downstairs next to Chick-fil-A.
What time is that at?
6 to 8. It could go further depending on how the discussion is.
Alrighty, thank you. And then Senator Colleran.
I would just like to echo John's sentiment, where I was like, well, I did do the presentation for the activity fee. If you have absolutely any questions, want to dive any deeper into different reasoning for specifically the community, I would be happy to just be resourced and answer any dumb questions y'all have any. Thank you.
And then oopsies VPJ.
I have 3 really quick ones. Just a reminder, the next VP of Advancement Open Forum is this Friday from 1 to 2 p.m. If you want more details, contact me. There will not be an open forum for next Monday's candidate just because like school is not closed for spring break, however, most students are not on campus. If you are interested in getting involved in speaking with that candidate, let me know and I can set up something with our search committee, because we want candidates to be accessible to students if you would like to communicate with them. Men's hockey plays this week. It's the first round of playoffs. So if you're in town and not leaving for spring break yet, I highly recommend coming out to the game. It's gonna be a lot of fun. It should be a really good weekend. And then my last one, everyone take time for whatever you need next week. When we come back, we'll be in the home stretch, a lot of things happening. So just take a break, do whatever you need next week to just kind of reset and truly take a break. It's okay to not work and not do a million things and just take time for yourself. So just a reminder for that.
This isn't really an announcement. I was supposed to say this in my report, but then VPJ reminded me because she brought up hockey. I will look to say last Friday night's game was a very eventful game, where Bemidji State University, my alma mater, beat the Minnesota State University Mavericks in a shootout. So I'm just saying, it was like,
It was a tie.
it was a very great game that they won in a shootout, so that
We're
was
hosting
great.
playoffs and they're not.
They're going to Augustana, which is a feast, so we're fine, fake hockey school.
It's our first year and
Alrighty,
they still aren't
any
hosting.
other announcements, Senator Holstead?
I may or may not be attending, I might be going to my churches, but at 6:30 at Ostrander, Crew and University are partnering together to have an Ash Wednesday service, so if you are wanting to attend that, go ahead and attend that.
Senator Mackey?
I'd like to bounce off of Charles' announcement. As far as I know, I don't think it got canceled. The Newman Center is also holding an Ash Wednesday service at 8 p.m. If you guys can't make it to the, what'd you say, 6:30?
Yep.
Yeah.
Alrighty, any other announcements? Alrighty, so then moving into final roll call, if y'all feel like wait packing up until after we get done, then I can actually hear people and we're not distracted. This has been a thing like every single week. And I don't wanna keep making that same comment every single week during roll call. Just be respectful of not only myself, but other people around you. Cause it's been like pretty disrespectful to me. Cause I have a job to do and I'm trying to do it so I can get you out. Thank you. So Senator Hassan, Senator Leon, Senator Franzen, Senator Miucci, Senator Prignitz.
Here.
Senator Emke, Senator Ponthe,
Here.
Senator Mackey,
Here.
Senator Bugney, Senator Reyes,
Here.
Senator Maega. She's on Zoom. Perfect. Senator Thapa, Senator Mpenga. I think you're on Zoom. Perfect. Senator Lee.
Yep.
Senator Dietrich.
Here.
Senator Smith. Are you still on
Here.
Zoom? Perfect. Senator Green, are you still on Zoom? I don't know. Senator Johnson.
Yep.
Senator Moore, still on Zoom. Perfect, I see you. Senator Maba, I also see you. Senator Knauer, Senator Karki. Oh, there you are, I see you. Senator Livingston.
Here.
Senator Riggle.
Here.
Senator Colleran.
Present.
Senator Zelmer.
Present.
Senator Ide.
Present.
Senator Hillstead.
Here.
Senator Isaac. I don't see you. I'm here, President Narala, and
Present.
Vice President Jay.
Present.
And we are adjourned at 5:50 p.m.
Good work, everybody. We're doing really good this budget season. We're getting through it.
Major criticism of my presentation on your stack one. You got the old logos and shit all over it.
Oh, yeah.
Like at the bottom, like there's like a banner with like the old logos and everything, and then even the back of the presentation is like the old thing.
Well, I can print it out.
I like it.
Fun.